Several decades ago, we stepped away from serving people with mental health disease, and we felt like they could be mainstreamed, right? And unfortunately, that experiment did not work, number one. So politically, we didn't want to pay for it. We, kind of pushed it out to smaller communities and cities and states. And that's what we're seeing all around us now. We're seeing the lack of funding, frankly, and care resources for people that have mental health disease.
Welcome to the Powerhouse Podcast, presented to you by SAC Life TV.
Hi, this is Topo Padilla, and I want to thank my family at Greg Padilla Bail Bonds for sponsoring the Powerhouse Podcast. We are always involved in the community, so if you ever find yourself in need of calling a bail bonds, you can call us at 446-BOND or find us at PadillaBailBonds.com. SAC Life TV and the Powerhouse Podcast want to thank Mosley Collins for his unwavering support of our podcast that keeps people informed. If you ever need legal help, call Mosley Collins Law at 444-4444. That's all fours for legal help. Hello, this is Topo Padilla. I am your host of the Powerhouse Podcast, where we talk about an array of subjects. And I have to tell you, as this podcast goes on and on, I'm getting more and more invigorated in what we are doing and more excited about the difference we're making in our community, our state, and our country. Today, we're going to be talking to Renee Balcom. She is the founder and CEO of Scroll.care. They are a technology-enabled care access platform built to restore clarity, trust, and dignity to how families and professionals navigate care. Well, it says care. We're going to get into a lot of mental health care. After more than a decade in direct healthcare advocacy, helping families cut through the complexity and making the confident care decisions, she has taken her business to an all-new height that you are not going to want to miss. So, Renee, thank you so much for being here. This is going to be exciting. You and I are, we're both passionate about what we do. And to be transparent, I'm a bail bondsman. I've been doing it for 42 years. We're going to be talking about subjects that are complex, having to deal with mental illness, and specifically different kind of holds and the things that families go through. Too many families rely on our government to do everything for them. Right. And they can't do it. And that's when families need to turn to somebody like you. So, Renee, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I feel like we've been roaming the same hallways for a while, so I'm happy to be here and meet you one-on-one.
So let's just jump right into it.
Okay.
One of the biggest problems we have, we have homelessness, we have people with mental illness, we have people with substance abuse, we have all this going on in our streets. Why is it now more than today? I mean, it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous in all of our communities. Why?
Well, so I have a political answer for that.
Go for it.
Several decades ago, we stepped away from serving people with mental health disease, and we felt like they could be mainstreamed, right? And unfortunately, that experiment did not work, number one. So politically, we didn't want to pay for it. We, kind of pushed it out to smaller communities and cities and states. And that's what we're seeing all around us now. We're seeing the lack of, funding, frankly, and care resources for people that have mental health disease. So that's a problem. The opioid crisis lent to a lot of what we're seeing today. The fact that we were just pumping, for lack of a better term, heroin into, a lot of people that thought that were taking prescriptions that were given to them by their doctors, right? Then we pulled the plug on that, and they had nowhere to turn to deal with their addiction but go to the streets. So we're seeing a lot of that. And then I also think that there's a big fear about behavioral health. I think we don't look at behavioral health as the disease it can be and the disease that can be treated. We kind of step back and we're afraid of it. Most of us are afraid of it. Families are afraid of it. Doctors are afraid of it. Judges are afraid of it, right? So we think the next best thing is we're just going to put them in a cell somewhere. Well, that's not going to solve that problem either. So, that's a long answer, but it's kind of my three-part response.
So one of the things I want to do is defend my favorite president, Ronald Reagan,
Yes.
Because I asked, how is it that Ronald Reagan did this? He dismantled are mental institutions.
Right.
And I've got an answer from somebody who told me why, and it was a political thing. Well, you give us that, and you take away, we'll take away this.
Yeah.
And I, whether it is or not, it is what it is.
Right.
And I'm so sick and tired of these politicians thinking they have the answer, because they don't have the answer. They need to turn to people like you. Sorry if I'm getting loud. People like you who know this world. If I'm going to go build an airplane, I'm not going to call my buddies that I play baseball with and say, hey, let's go build an airplane, guys.
Right.
And that's kind of a stupid example.
Right.
But these politicians, you advertise, they're going to run for office. I'm going to create more jobs. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get rid of the homelessness program. What in the world makes me think you know how to solve homelessness? I believe in somebody like you. And that's what we're going to talk about. And we're going to dive into. The first thing we're going to talk about is a 5150 hold. It is a term that nobody wants to use. It is a term that one thinks they get tattooed on their forehead forever.
Right.
What say you about that?
Well, let me comment on a couple of things you said. I didn't say Reagan because he also is my favorite president.
Oh,
right?
God bless.
Only second to Trump. Trump is second in. He's Reagan Jr., right? So, but I do. If you understand politics, you understand those exchanges, right? And like you, we're grown-ups. We're just going to accept that. Today, I don't think homelessness and mental health disease should be politicized. Again, we don't politicize cancer. We don't politicize, other heart disease, right? But we want to politicize mental health disease and homelessness, and that's just crazy, right? I've been invited, and I've had the opportunity to sit on many committees at the state and federal and city level, and 100% of those committees, they receive monies, and they want to dog-ear those monies for whatever the political talk is of the moment, right? And I have to tell you, the last one I sat in, I literally excused myself to go to the bathroom and did not go back because I thought, I am not going to continue to participate and put my time into someone else's political agenda over this subject. I'm just not going to do it, right? So the best work that I can do is really work on the streets and receive those phone calls and my loved one's in trouble and I don't know what to do. And most people have no idea how to launch a 5150. They assume if their loved one's in trouble, they call the police and law enforcement is going to do that. It's their job. Well, it's not their job and they're not going to do it. They may take them to the hospital. If we're lucky, there may be a doctor at the hospital that says, oh, this person's in crisis, and they call in psych to get an evaluation. Maybe they'll do it, but chances are they won't. We need 2 doctors to sign that off at the hospital. So usually they're going to clean them up, give them food. I've witnessed this firsthand. Give them food and then release them. The officer, if they don't go to the hospital, is going to take them to the jail, and they're going to book them and release them because, it's, as you and I both know, it's an expensive proposition to house people in the jails. It's also, if you're housing someone that's sick and they really have a psych break, they have to pay, the jail has to pay for that, right? So, Medicaid doesn't step in and pay for that. The jail has to pay for that. So that's an expensive proposition that most, the administrators of the jail don't want to put on their budgets, right? So over and over again, these people are booked and released or not treated and put back on the street. And we've seen the severe results of that in, the murder that happened in South Carolina, the young woman on the train, right? This man had 38 times he had been picked up, 38 times he was arrested, 38 times he was presented in a hospital, right? A portion of those times he was in front of a judge. He even had a sister that called and begged, because he had attacked her, and begged the court to put him on a hold. And not one time was he ever put on a hold. He was just put back out until finally he killed this girl.
And I'm not trying to just go brush right over that.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the judge doesn't care. The judges do care. I don't want to say the cops don't care. The cops care.
Right.
Somebody doesn't care or somebody doesn't want to do anything about it. It's not like there's big money in this. Well, there is big money. There's big money for NGOs,
Huge
right?
money.
There's
Huge money.
Because, my buddy's going to build a homeless shelter over here. I had Chief Kathy Lester, who I absolutely love and adore and think the world of her. And we talked about it. Giving somebody a tent, a homeless person a tent, is close to one of the most inhumane things you can do.
1,000%.
Oh my gosh. I mean, what are you trying to say? Oh, I just want you to be out here and cold, but with no rain on you? I mean, why don't you do something about it? We have enough wealth to fix the problem. We truly do, because I got to be honest with you. I know some very, very, very wealthy people in this community who have children that have mental illness issues.
Right.
And they would give their entire wealth if they thought what they could do would fix the problem.
Right.
We have to find the answer. I mean, these mayors, I got to be honest with you, though. The other day I went to San Francisco. In fact, ironically enough, my dad and I and my son, we bailed a guy out of Placer County Jail. His father, very well-to-do guy out of San Francisco, he bailed him out of jail. He paid for us, because he was going to hire an ambulance and a security service and this and that and the other, to transport him to San Francisco to the Sutter Hospital down there to go into their psych program. I said, well, we can do it. And they said, oh, no, he's bad. Oh, no, you don't understand. No, he needs to be basically strapped to a gurney. I says, we got this. We got this. Mm-hmm. And we took that young man, and if it could have been filmed.
Was he volunteering to go?
He was volunteering to go. He wasn't, he was voluntold by his dad. Mm-hmm. But for me, and the talk we had with him, we talked him all the way down there. Actually, he talked most part. I learned even more that day. I mean, there was nothing, there's no medication, there's no therapy sessions that we're going to take and break that kid. This kid was that far gone. He talked from Auburn to Vacaville the entire time and didn't stop. What can a family do with somebody that's that far over in crisis that he's going to talk literally from Auburn to Vacaville about an array of subjects, in the midst of it, point out bird. I'm not trying to make fun of it.
Right.
What can a family do with somebody like that?
So,
not to put you on the spot.
No. And I don't want to promote myself, but I do want to promote the fact that there are professionals like myself that can come alongside the family. We work to build out a strategy. We work to train the family, observe the client. And I don't work for the family. I work for the client that I'm serving 100%. And I don't care who's paying the bill. The client is the sick person, right? Is the person that needs care. So we determine a strategy. Number one, if someone is a harm to themselves or others, or in such a level of crisis that they cannot functionally care for themselves, that automatically requires a hospital visit. We're going to strike a 5150. We're going to put them on a 72-hour hold, try to get some balance in them through medication, and then go to the next level, see if we can get a 14-day hold and get them further treatment. And that's a system that works. Most people just have no idea how to pull that trigger. And so there's legal terms that you can say in the hospital setting, like harm to self and to others, that most consumers or family members have no idea, right? And if we can prove that out in the hospital setting, they are going to work towards putting them on a hold. Now, 72-hour hold, 14 days requires more documentation and a judge to weigh in, but they can get that done really quickly too. So, and then from there, once we've got someone starting to get on balance, we may put them into a treatment facility where they spend 30, 60, 90 days. By the way, all paid by insurance. So the whole idea that, I can't afford this or that it's too much out of pocket, we can kick insurance in on these services. Mental health disease is a disease. And so your insurance covers that disease, right? And interestingly enough, if you call, 1-800 I've got you and ask the, person about your insurance, they're going to say, oh, we don't cover that. But I will tell you every one of them does. Okay.
You're the one
right.
who figures out and consults families on how to get there.
Right. And so first, to answer your question, first we triage the client. How are you doing? And how aware is the client that they're in this psych break or that there's potentially in a psych break? So then we set a strategy with the family. Okay, if this and this happens, this is the next step. Usually the client will agree in the moment. But when the time comes for us to exercise a 5150, I've had clients saying, no, I don't want to go. So then we have to pull them off the ledge, really explain. And I cannot say this enough. 5150 is absolutely not punitive. It is not punitive. It is a treatment, right? It is a resource for us to get treatment. So when people have that thing on their forehead, that is not, if we could release that stigma and get rid of that and understand that we have this amazing tool that can help us help these people, right? And we learn how to exercise that tool, we're going to see some of this, these people. I go into the homeless camps all the time, right? The one that I found most insulting, by the way, was we bought all these fifth wheels and we set them all up for homeless people. And so there were just rows and rows of them. But none of the bathrooms there was no plumbing that was set up. So it was and so no water, no toilet, right? They were just like a shelter, right, for them to sleep in. And to be honest with you, when I went into that camp, the people that were in tents told me they actually preferred the tent because at any given time they would come in, get them out of these RVs and take the RV away. So they felt like they had some ownership in their tent. So it was really, really, really an interesting interface with people that are homeless. And I've had the privilege, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, these are human beings, right? They have dignity. They should be treated with dignity. And more times than not, there's definitely a constituency that want to be homeless. They don't want to be on the grid. They don't want to be tied in. But that's, 5%. 95% of these people are on hard times. They lost their home. Rents have skyrocketed in Sacramento. And by the way, the fastest growing population of homelessness in Sacramento and mental health disease in Sacramento is 65 and over. So grandma and grandpa are out in the homeless camps now because there's no place for them to live.
Wow.
Yep. And what one of the people that I spoke with, a homeless person, told me was when you live in that environment and even if you're not into drugs or any of those things, but you're never sleeping. You're never getting into this comfortable space where you can sleep. That starts creating some of the mental health issues that we're seeing, right? Yeah. The psychosis will start evolving because of lack of, personal nourishment. I don't know if you're aware of this, but even food stamps. So SNAP doesn't allow homeless people to buy hot food. Yeah, isn't that beautiful?
To it. I mean, if you go into a grocery store, you can't buy a hot rotisserie chicken.
No. Right.
That's relying on politicians to do it again.
So you can only buy food that you have to cook. Well, that poses a problem. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So a lot of times what they do is they'll trade because they want that rotisserie chicken because, obviously it's more
So they give away
accessible.
$10 for 5.
Correct. So we have, the system has all of these weird nuances in it that is just crazy. Another one of my favorite things in the system. Now, I had an opportunity to work in consulting with the California State Board of Mental Health because of this one factor. When this happened, I got to tell you could have pushed me over with a feather. And I'm not a little girl, so that would have taken a lot. I discovered, so as I mentioned, 5150, we've got a 72-hour hold. We extend that to 14 days for treatment, and then we go into a medically supervised living situation where you're continue to be monitored on those meds, right? In the state of California, you age out of that third discipline at 64.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Now you don't have mental health disease, you're demented.
Are you kidding?
1,000%.
You're kidding.
When that happened to one of my clients, I lost my mind, right? She had been treated for schizophrenia since she was 22 years old. At 64, she couldn't get her psych meds anymore. Because they were calling it dementia. Well, at 66, her husband, who was her sweetheart for, 40 years, her husband woke up with a cord around his neck and her knee in his back, and she was trying to kill him,
Oh, my
right?
God.
And because she had had this psych break. And so, we ended up, we got her, she went on the 5150, she went on the 14-day, we got her into a psych hold, and then there was nowhere for her to go.
I want to talk to you about a word you just used. I've been around downtown Sacramento since 1979 when my parents got in the bail bond business. So I've been around downtown. I've been around homeless. I could name a lot of the people, and there's one in particular. His name is Tony, and everybody downtown knows Tony. And I want to help this man so bad, but I mean, I've given him a jacket, and the next thing you know, I said, Tony, where'd the jacket go? He goes, I gave it to my friend. He has shoes with holes in them. I mean, I want to help him. He writes, and I've read some of his writings, and he's got his mind there, but his family's given up on him, maybe because he has a substance abuse problem or this and that or the other. But I want you to explain to people, if we can break through a barrier to where the family trusts that individual again, they will bring them back home. They will take care of them. Am I right or wrong?
Right. No, you're right. Listen, compassion fatigue, and that's the medical label for that, is real, right? When you have lived with someone with mental health disease for a long time and they have lied to you, cheated you, stolen from you, all of the above, right? After a while, as a healthy human being, you're going to start establishing barriers, right? You have to for your own mental health, right? So all of that makes sense. What I would want to do with Tony is sit with him and say, tell me about this. Tell me about being out here. Tell me what you think, Tony. Because again, I always want to treat these people with the highest degree of respect and dignity. Tell me what you think a good solution for you would be. And then once he tells us that, then we start working to orchestrate that. And I've had disenfranchised families that, just said, nope, can't. Well, as we work with the client and everybody finds their humility in the situation, then, love prevails. I mean, I believe in that. I believe that in most cases, family want to be there for each other. We just have to assist in the path. Now, Tony might also say, look, what? I'm kind of liking it here because I don't want the drama of family. Like, I don't want all that. I would like to see my family and have some conversation with them, but I don't necessarily need to be integrated with them. And again, so that's a different pathway, but it never hurts to work with that pathway and say, hey, you guys, this is how Tony would like to engage. Are you open for that? And again, all of this takes me back to so many clients. I've been doing this for 18 years. And I had a client that shot himself twice through the mouth. He slit his own throat. I mean, this man and his family was exhausted of compassion fatigue. You can imagine finding that multiple times in your home, right? His name was Steve. God bless his soul. But Steve and his family did find their way back to each other. It was very guarded. It was very managed. But this man died happy with his family with him. And that, warmed my heart because that's what he wanted, but he didn't quite know how to do it. And the family was scared to death of him, as you would be. I mean, walk in and find your dad with a, gun in his mouth and see what happens, right? So it can be daunting and fearful, and there's grandkids, there's all these other variables, wow. Right? But we can assist in finding that path. And again, it's a strategy. It's meeting people right where they are, first of all, right where they are. Don't judge them. Don't try to make them bigger than they are or smaller than they are, but right where they are. And then integrating that back with the family and seeing how the family is going to receive that. That would be the best path I would take for that.
I don't want to go back too far in what we've just talked about. I forgot to tell you when I went to San Francisco, we had to take him to the hospital, and then they were going to keep him there for a few days and then take him to the mental facility. When we were leaving, my partner Ken and I were driving away. We're driving through the streets of San Francisco, and I am not kidding you. I said, stop, Ken, pull over. He said, what? What's wrong? I said, look around. He said, what? I said, there's no homeless people. Mm-hmm. There's no people laying in the streets. I will say this, having firsthand been to San Francisco a lot, and I stopped going
Me
for
too.
quite a while. It is becoming beautiful again.
Was that because of during
It was
Super
just
Bowl?
3 weeks ago.
Because they
Yeah,
cleaned it
yeah,
up for
I
the
know,
Super
I
Bowl,
know,
because
yeah.
I was there,
Yeah.
and it was very nice for the Super Bowl.
No, this was 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
This mayor down there, Mayor Lurie
Mm-hmm.
and Brooke, the DA, they're making a difference.
They need to.
They are making it. Oh, they're making a difference. Trust me when I tell you what I saw. I literally could not figure out. It was weird.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Man, are you okay?" And I said, "No, look." And he maybe hadn't been there as much as I have, but we looked at it and it was amazing. So I want to dig in as we near the end of this. I want to dig into, the financial in this. I think a lot of people think, oh, I mean, I have a son or a daughter that is just over the top. I can't afford it. Talk to us about that.
So a few things, and it does look really expensive, right? If you're looking at private care or private placement. But with that said, two things can happen. One, we look at the insurance and we trigger the insurance and make certain that if the individual is insured, we can get the insurance to cover, especially Medicare will cover, Medi-Cal will cover, right? So if the individual doesn't, and most of the people that are homeless today are easy to get situated on Medi-Cal. So once we get them placed on Medi-Cal, and there's this thing called presumptive Medi-Cal. So where someone's in crisis, we can trigger that Medi-Cal right away. The hospitals do it all the time. That's how they get paid, right? So we trigger that and then ask for additional benefits through Medi-Cal for the next phases of treatment, right? And as I said, there's really 3 or 4 phases to treatment. I also want to touch on the fact that we have some miracle things going on right now for mental health disease. They finally realized the biggest, and families will tell you this all day long. Well, Joe starts taking his medicine and then he starts getting better and he stops. Then he falls off the rails. Well, now they finally have converted that into injectable medication, right? The injectable, you start 1 injection a week, then once a month, then once every 6 months, then once a year. And I'm telling you, it works. It works. I've seen it multiple times firsthand. Right?
Wow.
So again, there's medications now. Not all doctors are familiar with the injectables, and it has to be given to us by a psychiatrist. However, just ask the question. And these drugs are very, very effective, especially when we get down to 3 months, 6 months, a year on it. And the person stabilizes, that veil falls, and they have clarity. And I want to say this. Oftentimes, someone with mental health disease, especially if they've been involved with street drugs, may also have some brain damage, right?
Yes,
So once the veil comes down, it doesn't mean they're back to quote unquote normal. However, when that veil comes down and you can have conversation with them and they're liking how they feel on these medications, right? Then we can move to the next level of behavioral modification and some training, right? And so those are all the steps that we like to take with our clients. And again, we've been really successful in assisting people all the way through that path and putting them into a state where they're having a life of normalcy. Might not look like you and I, but they're making a contribution, they're engaged, they're cooking and cleaning and taking care of themselves, they're staying out of jail, and they're being productive. And that's the best we can ask for. So
Well, Renee, I'm going to tell you, none of us are immune to it.
no.
I have
We're a
family
moment
members-
away.
I have family members
Right.
that suffer from mental illness, and I have that fatigue. I did not know that.
Compassion
I didn't know that word, compassion fatigue, to where my phone rings and rings and rings, and I just don't take it. You have opened my eyes to some things, and I've been around this thing for a long time. You've opened my eyes. How can people reach out to you?
Really easy. My direct email is Renee, RENEE, at Scroll.care. So it's SCROLL, just like that, .care. And that's a direct email to me. If you send me an email, you should get an auto response with my contact information on it right away. So, but yeah, I do advisory work all the time and consulting work. So if someone just has questions, feel free to reach out and call me, and I'm happy to answer what I can. Doesn't mean you have to hire me or my agency, but I'm happy to serve.
That's what I when we talked about this before this interview, you said, I'm not here to promote me or my company. Yeah. I want to get the word out. And you've done that. And I have to tell you, I hope this podcast gets spread throughout the country, because Lord knows this country needs it. We need more people like you. And I know there's probably people like you that exist. Mm-hmm. When we get done here, I have several people that I'm going to put you in touch with, because I know you're going to make a difference. So
thank you.
It's been another wonderful Powerhouse podcast, and we're just gaining energy with this podcast, making a difference, getting information out there, and having guests like Renee that are out here saying the hard things. And we're not throwing rocks at our government. We're trying to say government doesn't always have the answers, and private industry can do it better than anyone. So thank you for tuning in to the Powerhouse podcast. Hi, this is Topo Padilla, and I want to thank my family at Greg Padilla Bail Bonds for sponsoring the Powerhouse podcast. We are always involved in the community. So if you ever find yourself in need of calling a bail bonds, you can call us at 446-BOND or find us at PadillaBailBonds.com. SAC Life TV and the Powerhouse podcast want to thank Mosley Collins for his unwavering support of our podcast that keeps people informed. If you ever need legal help, call Mosley Collins Law at 444-4444. That's all fours for legal help. Well, thanks for tuning in to the Powerhouse podcast, where we bring you fair and balanced discussions on the issues shaping our community. We welcome your input, opposing viewpoints, and guest recommendations, because every voice matters. Have a topic or a guest in mind? Email us at php@saclife.tv.